Hello again, you guys. Boyd here with you, and welcome to the first part of our USS Grissom build. This is the 1/350 scale kit that's just recently been released by Polar Lights. And we've gotten off to a nice little start here, guys. I want to talk to you about what I'm working on. I'm going to try to do kind of a step-by-step build guide of this model for you so that you can maybe find a few tips here that'll work for you if you build one of these for yourself. The first thing that I always like to do with one of these models where I'm going to be doing lighting and everything is to get it mounted on a base, so I have a secure, stable pedestal to work off of, and start mocking the entire model up, figuring out how the wiring is going to get routed and stuff like that, taking in mind where we're going to put all of our lights. Now this model has all the lighting locations for your navigation lights, both on the sides and on the bottom and on the top, already done. So you know where those are, and you've got these little holes that are already in place, which is kind of nice. So for this particular ship, it looks like we have navigation lights here that blink on the side of the little pontoon kind of part here on the very bottom. We have red on this side, which is the port side, and green on the starboard side. So what I've used is I've used a couple of 0805 SMDs, and I've put those in there. Now this kit comes with these little clear plastic inserts that you're supposed to glue in here and then attach your LED over top of that if you're going to use, well, whatever type of lighting you're going to use, whether it's an SMD or an LED, and light the plastic. Well, I've kind of worked with some of those similar things before, and I prefer to have my lighting more flush to the to the surface here, so we get a little bit brighter, more crisper looking light. And so what I did here to substitute for the plastic parts is I took a little bit of this Solar Res here, which is a UV curable clear resin, for you guys that aren't familiar with it. And I just made a little dab onto each one of these spots on the inside, and then I cured it with my little UV flashlight. So we had just a flat, clear surface in there. And then I basically super glued the SMDs on top of that, and I've gone back and light block painted over the top of that whole thing there with some just regular black craft paint using a brush, so that we don't get a lot of bright light flashing around in here, and that's less chance we have of light leaks, on the outside. We're going to have this little piece that goes in the rear, and I didn't want to have any leaks coming out around that with the green and the red lights that are back here. So I've also got one more white 0805 SMD right here on the very bottom where there's a belly strobe light on this particular ship. Same process on that location there. And here you can see we're using this nice little control board from HLI. This is a really small little board. I prefer to put my control boards in my model. Now I ran this board for 24 hours on my 9-volt power supply here with a couple of test LEDs hooked up on the circuits that we're going to use. And it all checked out fine. So I've never had any problem with control boards, going inside the model. A lot of people like to mount them outside in case anything goes wrong, but I think if it's wired right and you checked it and made sure it's working properly, I don't think you'll have a problem. I've got models that have been running for 10 years with the the board on the inside. So it's just a matter of preference how you want to do it. I like the less amount of wires coming out, from the bottom to the top, so I don't have to use a really thick mounting rod on these models too, and try to keep that hidden as much as possible. But everybody has their own way. So I have it on this base, and this is just my temporary working base. I've got a brand new large size base from Polar Lights we're going to use. I'll be putting a power switch on that and a power jack, so that way we have power coming up to the model. I may do some kind of little paint scheme on the base to spruce it up a little bit. And if I ever, the nice thing about using one of these is it's really simple to wire. And if I ever want to mount the model on something different later, all I have to do is just unhook everything and slide the wires out, and I've still got it on the rod here, and I can mount that on whatever I want. So, but these are kind of nice because they're nice and lightweight, and they don't take up a lot of space, on a surface either. So, but we've got that all set up. We've got the control board put in here, and everything's been hooked up. Now I want to talk a little bit about the control board. Here's a basic schematic layout of it, and you've got 3 different circuits that actually do something on this one. You've got one that gives you a blinking navigation light, which is just a kind of steady off and on that we do with our on this model. It's really similar to the Enterprise refit, where you have you know, you have some red and green navigation lights, but you also have a couple of white ones here and there that blink along with those at the same pattern. Then you've got a couple more white ones that we set up on what we call a strobe circuit, which is a more of a quick, almost flash bulb kind of blinking effect. So you have two different effects there. And then you've got this third one, which was you've got two modes of impulse engine effects. So they give you this option here of having a a push button switch, so that you can change the effect of the impulse engine from a I believe the default of it is a slow ramping up and down, and then the optional one is a more of a flickering effect. I just decided to leave the standard pulsing effect, the slow ramp up and down. I think that'll look good. And so I didn't bother connecting the extra circuit, but it's really simple to do as it's laid out here on the instruction. You just have to run one extra wire down to your base and then have it some type of a button there for that. So that'll be something you can decide on your your particular ship. Now, looking at the research I did on this ship too, I saw that the navigation lights on it look like they're steady on, and the strobe lights are on top of the saucer, on the bottom of the saucer, on the belly, and at the rear of each nacelle on the top, as far as I could tell. So I decided I'm going to do those, but I'm going to do the nav lights to blink too. I think it'll look more balanced that way, and I just kind of like the way that looks. So I always thought it was kind of strange how in the movies where they did that, and sometimes you wonder if it's just that they didn't have the circuit working or something like that. You would think that pretty much everything would always be the same, or they would try to have some kind of continuity. But anyway, that's what I'm going to go with because I just think it'll look better. We've got two more little white lights here, which I've got 0805 SMDs all set up. This is the lid that goes on here. So what my plan is, you guys, is I'm going to, I've got everything wired up in here where this whole lower half works. I'll go ahead and turn that on for you and show you that. We've got our reds here on the side, on the port side. Then over here we've got our greens. And then down on the bottom, we've got a nice little belly strobe light that you can see blinks at a little bit of a different rate there, more of a faster pulsing effect. So what we have then is the whole lower section's ready to go. Before I close the lid, these two white lights here, the one on the front and the one on the rear, we want those to flash on the navigation circuit so they match up with the green and the red. And so I'll just connect that to, into here before I glue this down, and that'll all be set up. So what my goal here is today is to get beyond this point is to, you can see I've run my wires up through here. Now these are all going to be marked. This is power, which this is going to run up through the pylon on the starboard side. They give you a nice little channel that's built into that. And we'll run that wire, and that'll go to the bottom of our platform that sticks up on the top here. And we've also got another circuit on this side, which is going to be the, I've got that marked strobe light, because we've got a strobe light on the top of the saucer and on the bottom of the saucer. So we've got to bring that circuit up into that. Over here, we've got the navigation and impulse engines. And so these are going to come up on the port side of the pylon and up into the upper platform. And then I can set up the impulse engine in there. And then we've also got the navigation lights that we've got to have up on the top. Okay, so that's going to come up through the pylon. So what my plan is to have this this lid glued down our wires here, so that all we have to do is pull them through, and then we can paint the entire top part here, get all of our putty work done on it, get it all cleaned up. All the, it'd be a lot easier to paint this without all the attachments on. So that's what the plan's going to be. I'm going to get all the detail painting done. We got a couple shades of blue. We've got some silver on this little area down here that's got to be done. Our grills here in a sort of a dark gray to black color. And whatever other little color accents. There's some blue that goes around here. So I want to get all that done. Then we can come and pull our wires through and slide our pylons into place, and we'll be all set up. We'll have the wires pulled through, and we'll have our upper deck first section laying there, so that we can start building up all the lighting and wiring into that and just kind of stacking the whole thing. That's how I chose to do this, guys. It just seems to work out. It doesn't follow the way they have you doing it in the instructions, but for me, setting everything up like this is going to work out really good. I want to point out too that the kit doesn't come with a proper hollow mounting rod. You got kind of a short, solid rod, so you've got to substitute that. Now this Polar Lights base that I got came with this this particular rod, and the size of this, guys, is 15/64, so it's a slightly bigger diameter rod than the kit comes with. So I just carefully took, after I made sure this was all glued and solid and everything, I carefully took a 15/64 drill bit, and I did it by hand, actually, because it's not that much bigger. I just used the bit itself and put it up in there and just twisted it until I got it, that size, and now the rod goes in there and it fits really, really good and really solid. So if you try to do that with a powered drill, it'll probably wallow it out a little bit, and it'll have a little bit of play in it then, because it's the exact right size. I'm not sure what that is in millimeters, but it's actually a metric rod, but 15/64 American, or standard, is what size that is. Also, there's this kind of weird thing I wanted to show you that they did with this kit, and I think the ship is supposed to look that way, but up here at the front you can see this little part here. This is the kind of the main sensor dome, I think. This gets painted a nice metallic with some paneling work on that. But you can see that this thing sits in here, and it has a gap in it, so it sits on these little kind of blocks on the sides, and it keeps this gap all the way around it, which looks like a little void. Of course, that'll all be black when we put the lid on this and everything. But one thing you want to keep in mind is that light can leak out around that. Right, so I'm going to power this back on and show you what I mean. If you look in there, you can see that the navigation lights are coming through on the inner part of that, right where they come out here on the sides. And it would have done the same thing if you used the clear plastic insert parts. You might have wound up getting some overspray on when you painted this, and it might have light blocked it that way. But just kind of keep that in mind, that you're going to have that little issue. What I'm going to probably do is just leave it alone, because I actually think it looks kind of neat with the light coming out like that. We're not going to have any other lighting in here, like cabin lighting or anything that's going to leak out. So I think in this case I'm going to leave that, but it's something you might want to think about if you don't want that there. What I'd recommend doing if you are bothered by that is just take your perfect plastic putty or something similar to that and just run a bead all the way around there and let it, use a Q-tip and kind of like push it in there a little bit, so it's like not totally flush, so you still have that kind of simulated lip there, and that way when you painted it, it would all be light blocked and sealed and everything. But just one of the things I wanted to point out, which was kind of unique on this kit. So okay, you guys, what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to get my top put down on here. All I'm going to be doing is connecting these wires to that navigation circuit, and then dropping it down and gluing it. That way it's all set up now, and we have this wiring ready to pull through the pylons later. But I want to get this all secured and fix our putty seam around the top here, and then we'll be able to go ahead and start doing all the detail painting on that. I'll be right back and show you the whole thing all put together. Okay, you guys, well, I'm back with more progress here. I've got the lower half of the model pretty much finished up here as far as the assembly goes. I've started to do a little bit of detail painting. I got the pylons put on, they've been glued in place. And what I'm doing here is I'm using this upper deck as a jig to make sure that they dry nice and straight and at the right angle and everything. So I went ahead and did a whole bunch of paint detail on this already before I go any further, because it'll be a lot easier to do it that way than it will be when the whole assembly is all in one piece. We've got some painting to do on the bottom of the deck there yet, but the pontoon area I've got pretty much done. You can see I did the different colored blue. There's this kind of duck egg blue here that you see, just basically the kind of the same thing you see on the Enterprise refit. And then it's kind of hard to see here. Let me, if I can get this little top piece off here and show you. We've got our secondary color there on the blowout panels for the pylons that are the same colors they were on the Enterprise refit as well. I'll show you what these colors are. I'm using craft paints, and we have this color here called Sea Foam, which is in my eye, almost a perfect match for the that green, kind of bluish green that's on the pylons on the refit. And then we have this light blue. It's just some regular apple barrel craft paint, and that's a really nice close match for that duck egg blue that we see on the Federation ships. So this is all set up really good. You can see I've got the boards working. The only circuit I haven't tried yet is the impulse engine one. I did test that with an LED straight off the board, but I've got those wires pulled up through here. We've got to figure out what we're going to use for lighting back here for that. Probably just a single SMD kind of set back a little bit. I don't want that to be like super bright, just, you know, a little bit visible. And hopefully we'll get our little ramping up and down effect off the board. We'll probably show you that in the next video. I did some nice detail painting here on these silver inserts here that I think looks really cool, kind of distinctive on this model. Looking at the box art and the photographs they had there, I kind of mimicked that. It looks really nice. It's kind of hard to see the upper one here with the top on it, but there you can see it a little bit better. That looks really cool and kind of unique on a Federation ship. I hadn't seen that particular design before. This Grissom is a lot more detailed, like I said, than what your impression of it is in the movie. But yeah, it's turning out to be really cool. We got some more blue detail. We got some of the grills done. So the bottom half is pretty much just about ready for decals. So that's where I'm going to leave it at the end of this video, you guys. I'll come back in the next one, probably later towards the end of this week, and we'll be working on the upper deck here. I'll take you through what I came up with for the lighting. We're going to light this little, we got some window lighting here, the lower dome and the upper dome. Then we've got a couple of blinking navigation lights that need to be wired up on that, and then the impulse engine. We've also got our little nacelles here that I believe in the front we've got a navigation light blinking on each side, and in the back we got a strobe on each side on the top. So, but we've got all of our wiring in place to run that over however we need to do it, and we'll get it all figured out and connected up. I'm just using, like I said, regular 0805 SMDs throughout for the navigation and strobe lights. Probably going to use a couple, just a small couple strips of LED tape to do the upper and lower domes, and that should be about it. So yeah, it's coming together. I can't say anything wrong at all about it fitting, and everything so far, you guys. It fits really good. Everything's lining up nice, and the gaps were all easy to fill in it, just a little bit of putty. We've got to do that around here once we get this all finished up and stuff too, but we'll get that all cleaned up, and then we'll do some paint touching up and blending in as we go along. I still got a couple little spots here I got to clean up the edges a little bit, but all right, guys, well, we'll call it a wrap on this one. We'll see you in a few days, and as always, take care and happy modeling out there.